I just saw a glimpse.
T-minus 60 seconds and counting. We passed T-minus 60. 55 seconds and counting. Neil Armstrong just reported back. It's been a real smooth countdown. We passed the 50-second mark. Power transfer is complete. We're on internal power with the launch vehicle at this time. 40 seconds away from the Apollo 11 liftoff. All the second stage tanks now pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. We are still go with Apollo 11. 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. We have a liftoff, 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Power clear.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Bullpen. As always, I'm James Roy, and with me is Tom Tavria. Tom, how are you doing today?
Mixed emotions. The Stros are locked up in a tight one right now. Obviously super excited about, the NFL draft. Rocking the Dynamo cap. Big win last night by the Dynamo. So got a little bit of everything going on right now.
No doubt. I mean, a lot going on in Houston sports. I'm really curious to know what your take is. So in the time since we've last spoken, the Astros have, I don't want to say gotten right, but there's been some signs of life on the team. I think there's reason to be maybe a little optimistic for this season. Arrietty's back. Hunter Brown will be back. And so that means that there is some semblance of a pitching staff available at some point. So how do you feel right now about the Astros? I just want to know, while we're in our H-Town, not rundown, that's already taken, Houston sports run around, if you will.
I mean, I feel great. I don't understand a lot of people that are panicking. If you look around the league, like, parity is everywhere. There is one team in all of baseball that is running away with their division and probably their league. And that's the Dodgers. And the Dodgers spent $11 billion and they're 14-4. Everyone else is mucked up together in the middle. As bad as it was on that road trip, the Astros are like 3 games out of first place. Like the first place team is the A's, is the Athletics. So I don't understand the panic. I don't understand people like this team is hitting the baseball and you can see the pitching not being there. Like, you should be ecstatic. Last year, we couldn't buy hitting at all. Like, they struggled mightily and we had all the pitching. Now, I believe you can go get pitching, or I believe you can bring guys like Spencer up. I think some of these guys will get right. Imai hasn't really got there yet. Hunter being a shoulder thing is scary, but Josh Hader is throwing. He's looking like he's going to come back. So, I mean, there's tons of reason to be optimistic about a team that is not even dead. It'd be different if you told me like they're 7 games out of first place or something like that. It's not like that. Like, and it's not just in the AL West. The entire American League is like that. They're 3 games out of the best record in the entire American League. So where's the panic? Why? I mean, they've got too many good players. Jordan is crushing baseballs.
I think that where it comes from is that you want what you can't have or what you don't have until you have it, and you realize that you then don't have what you had before. I think in watching the Astros, they've had teams that mash in their dynasty, and like the 2019 team. But notice I referenced the 2019 team. That's a team that was really good and could hit the baseball. They got to the World Series, but didn't win it. I think their best performances as teams in the postseason have come when the focus was excellent pitching and timely hitting. But I mean, that's to say, like, I agree with you. it is nice that the Astros can hit right now. And not only can they hit, they're hitting at probably one of the best rates in the league, if not the best. Seeing Christian Walker step up is huge. But I think the cause for concern for me isn't even like the starting pitching staff. I think the starting pitching staff needs improvement. But what really concerns me is that those games are being thrown. A lot of these games where the Astros are putting up, 5+ points, which I think if I'm looking at a baseball game, a team that's putting up 5 points should win 9 times out of 10. Like it's very, if you have an okay pitching staff, 5 runs is just a lot to give up. So personally, seeing that this team can score is encouraging. The biggest thing for me is the pitching staff past the starters, going into the bullpen and getting late in the game and seeing these situations where the Astros go down by a little bit because the starter has a slightly rough start, and then the hits rain and the Astros take the lead back. And then all of a sudden we don't know who's coming out of the bullpen and if they're going to be able to do anything to maintain that. Like we're watching games slip away late in games where it's like, oh, it's 3-0. Now it's 5-3 Astros. And then the final score is like 10-6. And we're watching runs get stacked up in late innings against poor pitching from the bullpen. So I agree. I think that pitching can be fixed. It's just a matter of there's a lot of issues with the pitching right now. And some of it could just fix itself. Like you said, there could be guys down in Sugarland right now that like Arrighetti comes up and throws 10 strikeouts. That's excellent. Now we know we have a reliable starting arm. If he is half of what we know based on his history, he's been semi-reliable deep in that starting rotation. To see him come up, throw 10 Ks is super encouraging. But I think that seeing that and Lance McCullers, all of it feels very shaky, which is why it's not like the team is just down and has guys that are underperforming. The team has shifted to a point, especially in the pitching staff, where they are relying on guys that are showing good performances, but are not consistent and may have been consistent, but it's been a long time. So when your pitching staff is looking to Lance McCullers and Spencer Arrighetti to be the guys because Hunter Brown is out, that is I think what's reason for concern is that not only is the team down record wise, it's not that bad, but I think that seeing the path forward on the pitching side is tough to see right now. So I understand the downness. I don't think it's like end of the world. The season's not over. There's some people that are saying they're not watching Astros baseball anymore. I'm going to tune into every game, and I think it can be turned around. But the vision, like in the past when the Astros have gone down to start a season, even back in 2005, the talent was on the roster. And even though people proclaimed the season dead midway through, they turned it around and went to the World Series. This team is not one of those teams that gives me that feel on the pitching side of things. On the batting side of things, they can mash, and if they can truly rely on that offense to be enough to overcome awful pitching throughout the season, or inconsistent at least, then they'll be set. But how far does that get you? That's the question that I have. I don't think it's over, but I think there's some things that need to happen, and not even like moves on the roster, just ways things need to shape up. Like last season, you talked about the pitching. We watched an Astros team over the past 2 seasons pull names like Ronel Blanco out of a hat, watch him throw a no-hitter and be a reliable arm, and then go down injured. Like they were getting long stretches of quality pitching from guys that were not on anyone's radar. So I'm waiting for the Astros to pull that rabbit out of the hat by just going into their farm system and being like, look, here's insert random pitcher's name here. This guy is going to save our franchise. I'd love to see it, and I think it's possible, but it hadn't been seen yet. So the fact that they're in close games with a team like the Rockies, who shouldn't have swept them, is both encouraging and discouraging, because I think that in the past we've seen the Astros struggle against the A's when they were in their prime. So, I mean, it could just be early season jitters. Could be a lot of things, but the pitching staff is not giving me a lot of confidence. So what about the Dynamo? So I missed the Wednesday game. I have a lot going on Wednesdays, but I saw they did pretty good. That was a Open Cup, right?
Yes, U.S. Open Cup, Lamar Hunt, U.S. Open Cup. It's a trophy that they've won in the past that I believe, now that they're not in Leagues Cup because they didn't finish well enough last season, they're really going to try to win this cup to kind of offset that. So last night was their first game. They didn't play in the initial round. They kind of made it past that round. And they looked really good. They played some guys off the bench they hadn't played yet together, and they were able to combine for some early goals. They went up a man. Guy got a red card for El Paso, so then they kind of struggled with how to attack that. Second half, they brought in some starters that weren't playing. Mateus Bogusz came in. Lawrence Inali came in, and it was just a totally different game. They looked really strong, and it's good. I mean, if anything, it's a confidence builder going into next Wednesday, which will be the San Diego team, and they're really good. So they're going to need it. And they moved on to the next round of the Lamar Hunt Cup, which they'll play the following Wednesday against Louisville, who beat Austin FC.
Nice. Exciting times. I mean, the first season that I watched the Dynamos when they won that Open Cup, and that was nice to see. I that's one of the things I like about soccer is that even though like the end goal is to win, the MLS Cup, there are other things you can do that are like exciting, and it's like, look at me. I also won this other trophy that has some importance to it. And they really won the last Open Cup trophy that had true importance to it because it was ones versus ones instead of, I think a lot of teams are playing their second team players. You mentioned that we didn't even have our starters on for like the first half against El Paso. So
Half
a
of
lot
them.
of the
They can't.
half of the starters
With
were
11,
out.
you can't sit everyone, but
Yeah.
half of them didn't start.
So I mean, either way, it's nice to have something to look forward to. Speaking of something to look forward to, we'll move into the Texans part of our episode, which is that we're 1 week away from draft night. Tom, how are you feeling this close? As much as we've talked about it, it's right there, so close I could taste it. How are you feeling going into with a week until we go into the draft?
I feel great. I think once free agency was kind of done, I felt really good about this team that they could go in and best player available, as Brandon kind of alluded to with a question for Nick Casario. I love being in that position to be able to take whatever you want, to not need to fill spots. Yeah, there are some areas where you'd like to have more depth or you'd like to have more competition, but for the most part, they could line up tomorrow with the team they got and be really good. So the ability to not have to force players in two positions to be able to go, oh, this guy fell to us who shouldn't be here, we'll take him and we'll play him because they have that luxury.
Yeah, I think what speaks to that, as much as a lot of people, myself included, would disagree with it, there are people that put out mock drafts, and I think it was Steve Palazzo put out his first round mock draft, apparently his final go at it. And for the Texans at 28, he put D'Angelo Pons out of Indiana University, a corner, sitting at 5'9", definitely relying a little more on football IQ than size with where he's at currently. But to put it out there that many journalists have different views of what the Texans should do with that pick because of how the roster sits right now. There's like things they can do, and there's obviously still a sentiment that they should spend high draft capital on O-line, even with what they've done in free agency. They're just in a really good spot, and that's a classic joke from Brandon in the comments. I mean, the BPA versus need thing is something that comes up, but I think one thing to contextualize that discussion that a lot of people don't think about is that best player available doesn't mean like consensus best player available. It means best player available on Nick Casario's board. So Nick Casario could have his board arranged in a way where needs are high up there, and he can still say he's taking best player available because he's arranged his board in a way where in his mind the player he's taking is the best player available. There's obviously some pull from like the consensus board that will affect that. It's called a consensus board for a reason. There's going to be people that are players that are on the board when Nick's on the clock that he's going to be like, well, I kind of have to take him if I'm going to pick here. Otherwise I have to leverage his value to trade out. I mean, one or the other. But I think the Texans are in a great spot. I think we both agree they've done everything in their power to set Casario up to do what he does best, which is go best player available, pick by pick, make trades when he doesn't like what he sees, and just kind of move how he does in the draft. So I feel incredible going into this draft. Next week, Tom and I will be live as the first round goes down. Hopefully not disappointed in the fact that the Texans won't make a pick, but hard to be disappointed if they can pick up some good draft capital. I mean,
Would you be disappointed if they don't pick?
the running joke is that like Nick Caserio has commented on the fact that he's like, I'd hate to disappoint the draft party. You know, like there's all these people gathered in Reliant Stadium waiting to watch the Texans make a first round pick at the draft party, and they trade out. It's the same thing that happened last year. I remember when they traded that pick to the Giants, they ended up taking Jackson Dart, moving out of the first, and Brandon's lean and trade up. I mean, I think that it depends on how the board falls. There are so few players in the upper part of the draft that I think if you start to see them fall, you go, okay, it's time to make a trade. And I think one of them is like Vegaone out of Penn State. If he starts to slip, I think he's just such a perfect scheme fit at that guard spot that you could potentially make the signing of Wyatt Teller a depth signing if you traded up and got him, because it's hard not to see him starting for the Texans very quickly. But there's just so few players up there. Some people would put Kenyon Sadiq up there. I don't know if tight end is a high enough need to do that. I think that's one you wait and see if he falls to 28. But yeah, I mean, I think that, so that's where I'm coming from with that. It's like draft night parties, technically us being there on Thursday night, we'll be waiting to see the Texans pick. We'll be talking over our final mock drafts. I gave today, later on, we'll talk over our second to last mock drafts. I feel like I took a step backwards on this one, if that's possible, given that I always rank a lot lower than Tom. But yeah, I mean, I feel really good going into this draft. Posted my list of my guys on Twitter, so maybe people get into that. But I alluded to it just a second ago, and I want to get your opinion on it. The Texans just announced that the stadium is going back to Reliant. What are your thoughts?
I think it's cool. I believe that that's a good thing. You know, that there's a lot of history with it being called Reliant Stadium. I know a lot of people are kind of, I don't call it NRG. I call it Reliant. It's not like it's changing ownership or it's changing, a different corporate sponsor. It's the same people. So to me, it's much to do about nothing. I mean, it's cool they're going back to it. It's kind of like a roots thing. But as far as anything else, I'm just kind of like, cool.
Yeah, I think that the funniest thing I saw was someone posted a picture of Enron Field and said, Astros, you're up. But I've always liked Reliant better than NRG. I think there's benefits to both names, NRG, Energy, whatever. But Reliant Stadium to me always was, rolled off the tongue a little better. So I don't think it's a huge difference either way, but I do personally, I've spoken to preferring Reliant over NRG. So this is huge for me personally. But with that, I guess, I mean, we could go over team needs line by line, and then we can get into our drafts. We could just talk about our drafts. It's a week out to the draft. That's really all there is to talk about is the draft.
Real quick,
what you got?
Before that, there were some jerseys that were released today, and I really want to point out that the Baltimore Ravens cooked. And if you haven't seen
when are
them,
they going to release ours?
I think that's next year.
We're this year. This year, the AFC South is getting rivalry jerseys.
Well, then I don't know. It's got to be coming up soon. But the jerseys at Baltimore,
they haven't alluded to it at all.
The jerseys that Baltimore put out tonight, they put it out at 7:30. They are super clean, all of them. The video that they put out, super clean. I mean, that's the bar for me right now. You got to go check that out. If y'all haven't seen
I'm pulling it up right now.
It was out on Twitter. The whole whatever, very, very cool. Shout out to the Baltimore
I'm gonna look it up right now because I want to also have an opportunity to react to it.
Brandon, you seen the new uniforms? Tell me what you think.
So are the Baltimore's just getting new uniforms then? Is this their rivalry jersey?
I think it's rivalry. I don't know. They call it the next I don't know, the next wave or next era or something like that.
Oh, the helmet is sick.
Both of them,
Or
the
I
gray
guess
one and the black one.
so. It is just a whole new set of uniforms. That's pretty. Because what I like about it is that the Ravens uniforms are like pretty cool as is. Like it's not a uniform that I would want to see a lot of change from, but there's some minor details that they have in their uniforms that you can call back to. They if you look at their pictures, they point out like the Ray Lewis in the with the sleeve raven, and kind of adding that flair to the collar on their purple jerseys.
I think they went
Um,
full Oregon Ducks. I mean
the
that's
oh
kind of how I
yeah, and the
felt.
black helmet. Oh
Yeah.
man, their color rush or whatever it is with the gold numbers. I agree with you. I mean, I think there's. Oh wow, the all black is nice too. That's
Yes.
crazy.
Yes.
So yeah, it looks like they just got new jerseys because they changed their primary uniforms, and the alternates are black and purple. The primary is the purple jersey and then the white jersey. It's not like an unheard of amount of change, but it is like enough to be noticeable. And I think that it's one of those things where they took what they had and they made adjustments in like the right way. Apparently the Rams also got new jerseys.
If you want to say that, if you go look at them, the
It
changes
doesn't
are
look like
so
anything
minor.
changed.
No, no, no. It's yeah. It's
I don't
very,
know what the
very.
plan is with. So I had heard at one point that sometime around now was when jerseys were going to be revealed. I thought it was rivalry jerseys, and I'm still really curious to see if the Texans lean into the space theme or maybe try and take a bit of H Town blue and make something more significant. Take a more significant step in that direction. I think like all black with like stars on it would be so sick. But I don't know how you incorporate that with the helmets that they have right now. And I don't know if they can add another helmet to their repertoire or not. I think they're already at 3. So I think they're set. So then I don't know. Then you look at, do they go with like navy with like, I don't know. There's a lot of questions around what the Texans would do, and I'm curious if it's actually going to be epic or if it's just going to be a slight spin-off of what they already wear. Like I think the Rams rivalry uniforms are the black ones, which was interesting. But all these teams that have unveiled black uniforms have 3 helmets and or have make their third helmet the black helmet or whatever. So I'm incredibly curious what the Texans are going to do with that. But with that, I feel like we've talked a lot about the Texans draft needs, and we can have those discussions as we go over our mock drafts. But I think we're just kind of at a point now where I just want to talk through where we're at. So like Tom and I are going to go through our mock drafts. This I don't think this is going to be the one that either one of us uses, but like it could be. I know I'm not going to use this one. I'm going to work really hard this week to get my ideal mock draft. But there were some new names that came up. They ended up being featured in my guy tweet. Um, but some new names that came up that I got familiar with over the course of this week. And I tried making trades, but man, every time I made like there was one run of the mock draft, and a lot of these like I would make a trade and then I'd be like, I hate this, I have to start over. But I like made a trade with the Saints. I traded back to 42 and I got a future second round pick to trade back, about 12 spots, which I thought was okay. I didn't think it was, I thought it was good. A future second round pick is not something I'm going to scoff at.
From the Saints too, who
From the Saints, I
yeah.
was like, yeah, it's pretty solid. But I got to that pick and I was like, man, it's just, you would think it'd be ideal to have like as many picks as possible in like the top 50. But like for me, I was like, well, I traded the 69th pick. Or no, that was different. Which that was, excuse me, that was a different one. But just trading 28 for a future second round pick and the Saints second round pick. And then looking at it, I was like, okay, I'm at 42, 59, and 69. And I all the players I want are like 70 and later. So I'm like, I have traded outside of my best interest, which is getting my guys that I know I want to draft. But I'm like, I could draft them here, but then it's like, what do I do? I think I like drafted Anthony Hill at 42. And then I was like, that's probably better fit for his because his PFF like ranking is weird for how there's people that have projected him in the first round of the Texans, Lance Zierlein. But he projects it like 82. But if you look at the way his has trended, he was in the top 20 and has dipped since, and then like kind of settled at 80. Just like Chase Besantis out of A&M was like 120, and now he's like 40 or 50. He's like really made massive changes, but I just couldn't make sense of it. I did make a lot of trades in the mock draft that I submitted, but like I felt like a lot of times that I didn't want to I didn't like the logic behind my trades, because like either I was trading to get a future pick where I knew one of my guys would be, or I was trading back because I didn't like who was on the board and just getting future picks, which is fine. It's just I would rather have a better plan. So here goes. I want to start with yours, Tom, because I already talked enough about mine. I'm getting a little frustrated.
You really sound like you're going through it. Like you hate your draft is what it sounds like.
Yeah, this is not my favorite. The two that I did the 2 weeks prior, I loved those drafts. And I do really like the top of this draft, but I think that just, I don't know, it's a weird shuffling of picks. I didn't like how my brain was working there. So what do we got here, Tom? Walk us through it.
All right, so I've been pretty consistent. I feel like the Texans are going to trade out of 28. I don't think the whole speak where he's going, oh, I don't want to disappoint the guys. I don't think he gives a crap about any of that. He is a hustler at the casino trying to make all the money. I think somebody's going to come for 28. There's already been rumblings that, there's a quarterback that I guess could fall in that area that some people could try to trade up and get. It's like the second or third quarterback in the draft, something like that.
Yeah, so Ty Simpson is the guy that people are like, yes, could be there.
So Seattle I was able to move back 4 spots and get a 3rd round pick for, 28. I thought that was really good value. I took Caleb Banks at 32. I think that's a really good pick. Defensive interior line, I think that's probably an area where, you could definitely maybe get a guy at 32 that could play, like right away. I mean, or at least be in rotation, where if you talk about any other position, if you talk about the line, I think it's going to have to be somebody really special. You'd have to trade up to move somebody off of that spot. So I feel like Caleb Banks is a good safe pick there. 38, Pregnon's been there the entire time. I've taken him every chance I could. I just feel like that's the right value for him. And if he's there, that's the pick they're going to make. It's the guard that, you think that the Texans need without having to like reach for him. And I know the Texans have met with him, so it just feels like it's a match. It's a perfect match. He shouldn't fall to them, and he's going to fall to them at 38. From there, I took my next pick, traded out again 4 more spots. I got a trade with New England, which I'm sure everyone's going to hate because the Texans, New England, this, that. But I was able to get a 4th round and a 6th round, a 4th round from next year, and a 6th round in this year's draft. Not that I needed another 6th round pick, but to make the value make sense, that was the way to go. I probably could have reached for a 6th round in next year and tried that way, but wasn't able to do it. Get to my next pick. Again, I just didn't see anything I liked. And what I love about what the Texans have done is in a draft where everybody's talking about tons of trades are going to be able to be made, they have tons of capital to trade with. So, it's not like I'm going to trade a pick and I'm not going to have another pick. So trading back 4 or 5 spots or 5 or 6 spots to get another pick or get a pick next year just seems easy. So again, moved back a couple spots, picked up another pick and kept it moving. Number 75, I was able to get Dominique Orange. I don't think that's a guy that's been pushed to the Texans at all at any point. But again, another defensive interior guy. And
they did meet with him though.
Oh, perfect. Well, I didn't
so yeah, you're on the right track.
I saw Iowa State and I was like, well, what's one more Cyclone, right? This is a guy that I guess, PFF liked in that spot. So I went ahead.
It would be the least surprising pick in the entire draft, going Iowa State again.
So then it just makes more sense. 96, I was able to get Jake Slaughter. Center, if I'm looking at the line, is another spot where you could argue that, there should be some competition there. I don't know what it would take to move Jake Andrews off the spot, but giving a guy like Jake Slaughter an opportunity again, he's not. I'm not reaching for these guys; they're falling to me, so I'm able to take guys that shouldn't be on the board because of the way the draft is falling. The next trade I made, I was looking to try to come off of some of the later round picks that we had. I just felt like I had all these players that weren't going to play. So I parlayed a bunch of picks into 117 and a third round pick in next year's draft from the Raiders, which I don't know how good they're going to be. So a third round pick from the Raiders seemed like a really, really good move. From there, 125, I took Chris McClellan. Again, another defensive interior guy, probably too many of them, right? But he just felt to me. It was like, that's a guy that shouldn't be there. I think, I know they have him graded at 125, but I feel like that seems like I got a really good grade on him. Again, moved around again. I feel like Nick Caserio can trade as many times as he wants in a draft like this because he's going to have the picks to do it. And every time he moves, if I'm being honest, and maybe if I do my final mock draft, I think he moves for picks next year. I don't know if he moves for as many picks this year as I was able to do, like in all these other drafts. I'm moving for a third round pick next year or fourth round pick next year, something like that. But then go down to 141. I was able to get a tight end, a Michigan tight end. I don't know so much about scheme. Didn't really look into it too much. Again, he was a guy that just kind of fell into that slot for me. It wasn't like I was picking names to go more scheme fit. I know Nick Caserio's big on, Power 5 school guys, guys that are playing for, national championships, stuff like that. Michigan was definitely involved a few years back. Made one more trade because why not? I was able to move down a little bit further and get a fifth round in the following year. And then I reached for Torian York, but we've talked about him a little bit. I think linebacker should be an area that the Texans target at least once. I probably should have tried to maybe get a linebacker earlier, but again, in that range that I was in, I didn't see anything that really fit. We've talked about Torian York a couple different times. So I reached.
I like him. He's just a little undersized, but I mean, I do like the pick. I don't mind you reaching for him either.
And it worked out well. I was kind of curious what the draft would look like grade wise. I thought I did really good, and then turns out PFF agrees.
Not to knock on your draft, but I think this draft really confirms to me what I already believed, which is that PFF is not grading you based off of needs. They're just grading you based off of where you draft players.
Well, no, because all those positions are positions of need based on PFF.
Positions of need. But I should say that they're not adjusting the grading based like in a system that's trying to accurately grade how you address needs. You drafting Caleb Banks should then take some value away from the pick of Dominique Orange because and there's also some nuance to it because this system would then have to know if the Texans need more than one defensive interior lineman or interior defensive lineman, if the Texans, how many they need. So obviously PFF is just grading you based off of where that player ranks relative to, and they could be giving a boost for need, which would help you out a lot, but they're not adjusting that grade based off of like, hey, we don't like your pick of Chris McClellan because you already took 2 interior defensive linemen, even though it is a need. So like I'm in trying to understand how PFF grades and why I kind of disregard it when I make a lot of my picks. It seems like the heaviest factor is where the player ranks and where you get them at.
I don't know. I could have taken quarterback, and I think I would have got a bad grade.
One thing that works in favor of the theory that they are factoring needs, though, is that there are some picks where like you got the player, or I've seen it in the past where you get the player. How do I say this? You get the player before their pick or like just after, and you still get a bad grade because it's not a need. I've seen that before, but I don't know. I could not. I like with Marlon Klein, he ranked at 138. You got him at 141, and you still got a B-. That makes me believe that they might be factoring needs because not a lot of people are taking tight ends in the Texan sphere because they don't view it as a need. But I don't know. That's just me thinking out loud. As far as your mock draft goes as a whole, a lot of people dropped off of Caleb Banks. If you remember, he was like projecting in the top 15. The foot injury is what made people concerned. Someone that big, the foot, kind of becomes a huge concern as to something that could be a potential repeat injury. I still like Caleb Banks. I've kind of eased out of taking him because assessing the guys that are available, I found that Christian Miller, I think, checks a lot of the boxes the Texans want and grades out a lot better overall, even though he's projecting later. I think the athleticism from Banks, though, if he can stay healthy, is a huge plus. So I don't think there's a wrong answer there. If you get both players healthy, I don't think there's a wrong answer. And I do like the Banks pick. Pregnon is a. Oh, what's up?
I just think between the two, like one was top 15 talent, the other one never was. So for me, I'm not gonna knock a guy. It's for me, it's the same thing. Like if you look at Kamari Lassiter in the past, oh, he's not fast. He can't play corner, on the outside because he's not fast. He ran a slow 40 time. Well, we now know that did not matter because he's an absolute dog and he makes up for it elsewhere. Do I think Caleb Banks is that guy? I don't know. But I believe that when they said he was that good, if you got him right, he would be that good. To get him in the last pick of the first round, and that gives you your fifth-year option if you want to take it, I think that opens up a lot of opportunities.
I do like taking an interior defensive lineman young in the first round for that reason. I think it also is one of the reasons why taking Pregnon in the first round makes sense because especially if you consider him as a player who might sit, you want to have the option to have him back for a fifth year. That way you're basically, you're treating him as a second round pick in the way you're playing him, and you're going to get 4 years of him after that first year when he becomes expected to actually take over as a starter. I know that logic might not follow for some people, but I'm fine with it. And as far as Caleb Banks go, like I agree with you on that. This is like the reverse of like why you draft the player and not the jersey, because a lot of people don't like Chase Basantis because he's a Texas A&M guard with the PTSD from Kenyon Green. I really like Christian Miller. One of the big reasons is because he's a Georgia defensive lineman, and their history of that makes me, and the way he grades from PFF, it makes me question why he's not ranking higher on a lot of boards. And I wouldn't be surprised like if maybe there's other teams in the league, they shouldn't, like I said, there's a lot, the belief is that you shouldn't draft based off jersey, but there may be teams further up in the first round that are like, Kristen Miller is a Georgia defensive lineman, I will be drafting that guy. I don't care, like I'll take him with the 20th pick or whatever pick it ends up. But overall, I agree with your assessment of Pregnon. That's a player they seem to like. In my final mock draft, he'll likely be on it because I believe that the Texans like him enough that they'll probably end up drafting him if he's there. And he has been there at both of their first two picks pretty consistently. Mike Washington, the fumble concerns have become very loud in the Twitter sphere, which is why a lot of people have kind of backed off. I still think that he's a good pick at 69. If you can get him in the third round, I think it fits. I think earlier than that, tough to justify, but you got him, I think, at the right spot. Going with the 3 interior defensive linemen is certainly bold. I think it puts Chris McClellan at risk of being the first 4th round pick the Texans have cut since D'Amico Ryans took over as head coach. But to each their own. Jake Slaughter's a good pick to give some competition to Jake Andrews. I think the prevailing thought on this center class for a lot of people is that there's not like a clear scheme fit for the Texans at the center position. So then it becomes, is there a guy on this board that actually gives competition to Jake Andrews, or are you just drafting depth at that point? So a thought process that's come up is Keelan Rutledge potentially being a center, and he's a really good scheme fit for the Texans. If he can snap the ball and play center appropriately, I think that could be the person who ends up giving challenge to Jake Andrews if the Texans get him, and they seem to be interested. And then I like, I've seen that Michigan tight end come off the board. Getting a blocking tight end late, I think, gives some good competition to Foster Moreau and Cade Stover and some of those guys in that room. And I think the prevailing thought in the Texans organization is that they need primarily a blocking guy. If they can get both, cool. But they're looking for a guy who can be that tight end 2, tight end 3, and provide that seventh man with their, heavy package for blocking. And then we talked about York. I like York a lot. So let's see. I'm going to shift it over to my mock draft. Like I said, I didn't personally like this one a whole lot. Those first 4 picks I know are going to piss people off because 3 of them are defense. And that's honestly, with the value in the first 2 to 3 rounds, I'm having trouble not putting at least 2 to 3 defensive players up there. And I think the Texans have done enough in free agency that you can do that. You can get that value. Interior defensive line, get younger, get a guy who's going to be under contract with a 5th-year option. Edge, grab a guy who can develop into the next guy, but can also contribute immediately in that rotational position. Fill the whole Derek Barnett is leaving. Give you 350 snaps of quality pass rushing and run stopping, whatever you want to get out of him. Get a linebacker that has the size and skill to start in this league, and someone who can give challenge to Henry To'oTo'o immediately. And if you don't extend Azeez Al-Shaair, or you go into next offseason in a position to lose potentially both of those players, you have a guy who can step up and be the starter. So I don't think there's some people, there's this thought process that the Texans can't go defense and get value because their defense was good last season is just putting on the blinders to what's going on, because rosters progress. That's why teams spend huge money to get new players and tinker around. Players want more money than you can afford to pay them. Players get old, things change. And so if you want to sustain it, you can't be content. You can't become complacent and just be like, our defense was really good last year and most of the guys are returning this year, so we don't have to do anything at all to address that. When there's concerns that will become readily apparent in the next year or two if they're not addressed now. The good teams use the draft before the draft that they need to address these things, so that they don't have to be playing on their heels trying to fix issues as they come up. So if the Texans went 4 defensive players to start the draft and instead of going guard took a corner, I would not be incredibly mad about it. I think you can justify it, but I think that with that in mind, this mock draft maximizes value, and those first 4 picks are really good to me. I like them a lot. Kristen Miller, young, excellent run stopper, has really good pass rushing for an interior defensive lineman, and fits everything that the Texans have been known to go for. He has a top 30 visit. He's very much in the profile of a player the Texans will take. Zion Young, a little less so, but I mean, he did have a visit with the Texans. And I think the Texans, I picked up on it. Maybe, I don't know if I was earlier or later than others to the fact that the Texans, if they don't bring back Derek Barnett, are definitely going to go high on edge. And so I think Zion Young, I thought Zion Young was the best player here. Believe it or not, with Pregnon on the board, I liked going Zion Young. He's a guy who's going to more immediately contribute. Right now, the Texans' offensive line is set. It would take going. I've talked about how I'm okay with it, but like in my mind, I was like, I can get a young edge that can potentially succeed the next guy, but will contribute now. Or I can go and get Emmanuel Pregnon, and I can potentially sit him on the bench for his entire rookie season, and then have 3 years left of his contract and hope that he developed enough sitting behind Wyatt Teller. On the off chance that Wyatt Teller doesn't completely implode and is very serviceable, returns to form, as we suspect he will, having left the Browns organization. So with that, I thought the 3rd round was a really good point to address guard. I feel like you grab a guy who can play guard and can develop, but also gives challenge to Jake Andrews. Keelan Rutledge has been rumored to want to go inside. He's been practicing at center. You get your guy who can, when you use your pick there, you get great value on an interior offensive lineman that can be expected to contribute this season. But if he doesn't, you're not like, I wasted the 38th overall pick bringing this guy in for him to sit his entire first season. Every one of these picks I've made in the first 4 picks will contribute in his first season in some significant way. The only one that's at risk of not, surprisingly enough, is Anthony Hill, because if he can't get past Henry To'oTo'o, that's a linebacker room that, short of injuries, just does not rotate a lot. We run nickel basically as our base formation, and if you're not one of the top two linebackers, your snap share is very limited. So that's the biggest risk, is going up on Anthony Hill there. But he's the only linebacker in this draft, not the only, but one of the only linebackers high up on the board that has the prototypical size of an NFL linebacker that showed really well at the college level. There's a lot of undersized linebackers like Jacob Rodriguez and Torian York that could show up, but you take that risk with their size. So from there, I made a lot of trades. And like I was telling Tom before, I didn't like my thought process on these. So I'm sitting here at 110 or at 106, and I was like, I don't see anyone I like. I'm going to trade back. Okay, cool. I get a future fifth. I go, okay, well now I'm 4 picks back and I still don't see anyone that I like. But I saw Jack Endries. I knew that if I traded back a little bit, I'd like the value better. So I ended up trading back, got a future fourth, which I thought was weird that I traded back 4 spots and got a future fifth. And then I trade back 25 spots and suddenly it's a future fourth, but I'm still in the 4th round. I don't know. It was strange, to say the least. I don't think it was bad value, but I was content with it. I take Jack Endries. I am at 51 or 151, and I'm like, I like Katron Allen here, or I was at 141, and I really wanted to take Katron Allen, but his value just wasn't there. And I was like, I almost just took him, but then I was like, I can rearrange it. I want my pick in the 7th to be in a good spot to take this tackle that I just 6'9", 350-pound monster needs to develop. I think that in this draft is the perfect draft for the Texans to take a more developmental prospect at the tackle position. And everyone's like, well, what about Max Ianakor? Do you really want to spend your first or early 2nd round pick on a developmental tackle prospect? Sure. I mean, you could. That could be what you want to do, but I like the idea of a really late draft pick. If this guy doesn't make the roster, so be it. But like, it's a guy who has the size and just is a little raw for the position. Maybe he ends up getting cut and brought back as a practice squad guy. So I wanted to set that pick up. So I traded back 10 spots, took Katron Allen. I've been calling him the Lendell White to the Chris Johnson. He's just a bigger, more aggressive running back. He did have 1,000 yards in I want to say each of his college seasons. But he's like more of a bruiser at running back. I think complements what the Texans have in that room right now. Should be expected to see some goal line work if he can make the roster, because as we know, once you get past the 4th round, there's no guarantees. Pat Coogan, this was one where I was like, okay, well, I'll take a center too. So Keelan Rutledge could end up being guard depth, could immediately challenge for center. But Pat Coogan, I think, is also someone who, with his football IQ, showing up as a captain on a national championship team, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. Don't sue me if I'm wrong. But he's a guy who has the intellect and could challenge for that center position as well. You just bringing in good quality interior O-line depth. And then with the last pick, taking Travis Burke, talked about him. University of Memphis is a school that in the past decade and a half has completely turned their football program around. My dad was in the Navy, so I lived in Memphis for a little bit, and I actually did a semester of college there back when Paxton Lynch was there. And that's a school that went from the football team being the butt of the joke and being a basketball school to being a football school, and producing a quality football program. So Travis Burke being a 6'9", 350-pound bruiser, I think it's worth taking the flyer on that. I like what that program has done over the past decade. And then they've produced some coaches that have gone on to have some pretty good careers at better schools. It feels like, I don't know, like the Charlotte Hornets or something, where they're basically producing coaching talent to go to other bigger schools and be better, waiting for their turn to be the bigger and better school, I guess. But yeah, I don't know, Tom, do you have any, what are your thoughts on my mock draft?
So here's the thing. I like what you did. I'm blown away at the picks you were able to get late. I think you forced those trades. They're so good. Like to get that fourth round when you got that fourth round feels criminal. Like you stole Pittsburgh's soul to get I don't know what you did. Like that's crazy.
So to be fair, to full disclosure, I know you only use like you only trade if the team wants to trade for your pick. And so what I found is that teams will decline your trade if you're trading with teams that don't want your pick, but they will accept it. It just won't tell you what the value is. It won't tell you if it's likely to be accepted. It just says this team doesn't want to trade for this pick. So I go in and make those trades. And what I do is I use a spreadsheet. I look up like the pick value chart and I make sure with these future picks, it's harder because they're not on the chart, but I just basically discount the value of where that pick approximately would fall in that round. So all of these picks were, approximately within, I like to be within 20 to 30 points of each other. I think that's like a good threshold because that's generally when you watch the draft, they put these values up next to these picks. And Texans Cap also posts like the trade value on all these trades that Caserio does. And he is usually either 20 or 30 points ahead or behind on any trade that he makes. So that's how I came to it. But I don't exclusively trade with the teams that show up offering me picks for the trade.
So the only gripe that I would have is all the guys that you took at the top, you reached for based off PFF. Now I know you can say these are my guys and I got to make sure I get them and this and that. But what I'm finding and what I've been doing with these drafts is where they're graded is probably where they're going to get drafted. I mean, sometimes you'll see it where like one or two, one way or the other, but like you're trying to at least get close to these numbers or at least kind of make it make sense. Like to me, you could have took Keelan Rutledge at 59 and Anthony Hill at 69 and got a better grade on the deal. Because
But the thing is on previous mock drafts, I've taken Anthony Hill at 69, and the consensus in the comments, at least, is that he's not going to be there at 69.
I can't care about the comments though. I can't draft this thing based on what Twitter says. I have to use PFF. So they're giving you the system. You have to play with the system. So and maybe it'll be different come draft night, right? Like normally the consensus of what McShay and I'm struggling with the other guy's name.
Mel Kiper.
Yeah. Whatever they're giving you half the time, these guys are getting drafted in those ranges. Like the moves aren't that crazy. PFF may be on another island. You're probably right about that. They're probably not close to what the final is going to be. But what I'm using, I'm trying to play within those rules, right? So I would have traded back to get Kristen Miller. There's no way there wasn't a trade that you could have got 39 picks back and got out of the first round and got Kristen Miller. I would have probably, I don't know. I probably wouldn't have took Zion Young. I'll be very honest. I know you're saying that he's going to contribute. I just can't see it. You're talking about, and again, you're talking about the only way that guy sees the field is on limited I don't know, third down work, maybe like, late in the game's out of hand. Like Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter, and Dominique Robinson are going to see the field before that guy. Like the Texans went out and got Dominique Robinson and I think they're going to play him. So I don't know where Zion Young, I mean, he's better than Dylan Horton, right? 100%. I just don't know that you're going to play him enough for a second round pick. The old adage is that your first 3 rounds are guys that are going to play and be ideally contributors. Yeah. So same thing with Anthony Hill. I probably wouldn't have taken him that high because I don't know that he's going to see the field right away. Now, I think he could be good development, like you're talking about, kind of in the same vein with how you went with your lineman at the bottom. Like Anthony Hill could be a good developmental tight end, but we're talking about drafting tight end number 3. Like whoever they draft, wherever you get him, he's the best scenario is he's tight end number 3. So I don't know.
Yeah. So on the topic of Anthony Hill and where he's drafted, it's not just Twitter comments. Like Twitter comments generally feed off of the fact that a lot of people use a lot of different draft simulators. So like to add insult to injury, with PFF's recent shuffle of personnel, their draft department could take a hit. I don't even know how like it's usually pretty accurate, but there are some huge discrepancies. I'm looking on NFL Draft Buzz, which is the simulator I used very heavily last year, and it rates Anthony Hill as a early second round pick, which means that he might not be on the board at 38. It really depends. That could be the pick to take him at. So when I look at value, one of the reasons why my grade is never better than yours is that I never solely rely on PFF to give me where each player is going to be. I'm thinking like I want to be realistic overall. My goal when I make a mock draft is not only to get my guy, but it's also like to look and be like, well, do I really think this player is going to be available here? And so like a lot of times PFF shift in rankings coincides with like a player's, measurables coming out, or like news about them, injury news. Like Caleb Banks dropped 15 picks because he broke his foot, and that makes sense. But with Anthony Hill, he was in the top 20, and then I don't know if it was just his measurables like didn't measure up. Like he's prototypical size. I didn't see anything in his measurables that made me think this guy's not worth drafting. But for some reason he tanked from 20 to 80, and that didn't make any sense to me. So I kind of tried to meet in the middle and change his ranking in my head based off of the multiple sources. Whereas like Caleb Banks, I'll take PFF's word for it. They had him as a top 15 pick and he broke his foot. 15 picks down, being available at the end of the first round makes sense. I don't need to double check that, but there's a few different players where I'm like, okay, well, was it his measurables? What happened? Why did he jump? Keelan Rutledge was rating out in the 4th round, as was Mike Washington Jr. for a lot of the offseason. Mike Washington Jr. had a huge combine and jumped to 70, which made sense. Keelan Rutledge had a really good Senior Bowl and a really good combine and jumped. Even though he has his injury history, Keelan Rutledge made a huge jump because of how he performed, and it made sense to me. So I haven't really verified those with other sources, but that specifically Anthony Hill, I've slowly moved him up my board to see where he makes the most sense for me, because I think legitimately we'll see him come off the board in the 2nd round. And I don't know if he'll be available even where I took him in this mock draft, but I'm trying to be realistic with it relative to what I'm trying to anticipate. Like, on draft day, you spend all this time doing mock drafts, and then like last year, Tyler Booker goes 12 overall, and you're like, this is literally a guy who spent the whole offseason anticipating being available to the Texans late in the 1st round, and he's off the board just outside of the top 10. I'm like, what happened? What did I miss something when I was reading up on him? Because I thought he might go a little higher based off the guard market. I didn't think he was 12th overall pick material. So right, there was a stretch where I was trying to pick up a Vega Ione, and I was like, okay, where does he realistically fall to? Like, so that's like, I don't know. I do a lot of that in mine, which is why my grade will never be better than yours, because you are you're going to get really graded really highly because you're picking in that area that PFF wants you to pick in. But
well, I mean, that's kind of what a lot of teams are
I mean,
do.
I don't blame you. I do it too.
I'm not picking guys that don't make sense. Like, I don't know where anyone's going to get drafted, right?
Exactly. No one knows.
It's all a guess. So you can have these guys say, oh yeah, I think this guy's this great. And then come draft night, the dude slides. So, and I'm not talking about anybody that we're talking about. I'm just talking about in general. So it's all a crapshoot. To me, I'm really working with, okay, what did they leave me? What guys fit, the roster based on where we're at. I'm not going to go down 30 picks because I like the guy as equal to the dude that's there. If I think, okay, PFF are paying guys to do this work. Like, I get it. I'd like to think I'm smarter than them. I just won't do it.
I agree. And there's a lot of picks where like I have to rely on PFF because neither one of us is draft analysts. We don't have the time to sit there and research it. Anthony Hill is just a specific case where it's a player that I've been able to do that research on, or I've just gotten curious, and my ADHD has focused me on figuring out everywhere that he could possibly be drafted. But like, I've noticed the trends with where players are drafted, but like Katron Allen, I'm like, I don't know, he ranks 159. I have to make sure that I'm in position to get him, but I don't want to reach. Or like, I think my rule on when I'm looking at the board and I don't really have a firm grasp is I don't want to go back further than like 10 or 15 spots. Like if the player is ranked 10 or 15 spots below, I have to like reassess. Travis Burke is one where his ADP was ahead of where I drafted him, so I didn't feel that bad about it. But um, and I think the grade reflects that, even though he ranks like 100 spots lower and doesn't rank as someone who's going to get drafted. But I think pretty consistently I've shown I don't go more than like except for Anthony Hill, that was the one where I had reason to go like 25 spots below where he's ranked or ahead of where he ranked. But in all the other cases, you'll notice, yeah, that's how you can kind of tell if I have like that research. Cause like Pat Coogan is a guy who was like, that was like 15 spots ahead. I was like, I literally made trades to make sure I was in a position to take him within 15 spots of his ranking. I didn't want to like super reach. Sometimes I do, but in this draft, the only super reach technically was Anthony Hill. If we factor ADP, I guess. But overall, I guess going over the draft, I really like the front end of it. It's just the back end. I felt like I got guys that I liked, but my biggest gripe with my draft is that I felt like I made trades for the sake of it, or like I didn't like the reasoning behind it. I don't like having to make a trade because I just don't know who I'm going to take there. And the other thing is when we run mock drafts, like I'm having to make trades at the pick because I don't get to sit there and watch the clock go and go, oh, I'm kind of worried this guy's going to get taken. I have to have some certainty in my head that I'm trading back to a spot where that guy could be available. So it just is, it's a different mental math, different rocket science, if you will, going on in the brain. But oh well, I don't know. That's why I actually asked the question on Twitter the other day, and the heart of the question was, I'll tell you the question first. I said, if you were woke up tomorrow an NFL GM, would you want it to be for the team that you are a fan of? And the reason I asked is because, like, I don't know if I'd want to be the Texans GM. I want the Texans to be in the best position to succeed. So do I want me to be in charge of making all these draft picks? Like, it's one thing to look at a mock draft simulator and find the guys you like that you think could be successful, but then to actually have to suffer the consequences of making those picks and potentially screwing over your team's entire future. It's monumental. Everyone was like, obviously I'd want to be the Texans GM. I'm like, is it obvious? I don't think it is. If I woke up tomorrow an NFL GM, I'd want to be the Jaguars GM or the Titans GM. I'd want to be in the best position to screw up the teams the Texans play the most.
Why would you say that? You wouldn't have a job for more than a year.
That's fine. I'd save my money well. And then go be a college GM because they're looking for those now. I don't know. Like, I guess I'd want to pick some. I wouldn't want it to be the Titans or Jaguars because I would want to try and do my best to keep the job. But I'd want it to be in a position where I can't really super heavily affect the Texans. So, like, I don't know, maybe like an NFC team, maybe like the Lions or the Bears. So I'm trying to think of like a team that they might, like, it couldn't be the Bills. They see the Bills like 100 times, it seems, and they're not even in the same division. But
could never be me, sir. Scared money don't make money. You got to go be your own GM. You gotta make your team better. Not try to go make other teams worse. That's where
I think at the end of the day, I'd probably, like, if they asked me to choose, I would probably take the Texans. But like if it was random, I don't know. It might be better just like to be on a team that I can, like, if I mess up, it's not affecting my fandom. It's kind of like journalism, you know, like that's why like a lot of people don't like this content creator age because like there's like rules for journalism where you can't be a fan because it affects your coverage of the team.
I totally disagree with that.
And it's like, to be fair, some of the guys that covered the team that I like their coverage better are guys that aren't a fan because like they're not gonna like pull punches or like, you know, wig out or have like a fandom moment when things get real. They're gonna ask like the tough questions.
I think you can do that and be a fan. I think the problem is that people want to hate a guy or they want that guy to come off a certain way so that he gets to the root of all evil. Like, you know, And I don't think you have to be that way. Aaron Wilson does a really good job. I think Aaron Wilson is a fan of the Houston Texans. I don't
Aaron,
think
I don't think Aaron is. I think he's grown to like the team because of his familiarity with it. But I'm pretty sure he's confirmed that he's not like a fan of the team.
I think he has to say that.
I don't know, man. I think Aaron has a pretty good disconnect from like his emotions when he's
All
covering
right,
football.
fine. I'll give you another one. Robert Flores is definitely a fan of the Astros.
Oh,
I think he's a
diehard.
very good column.
I'm not saying I don't think it's possible to be good at it as a fan. I just think I can see why the objectivity would be nice, and it has been. I've seen people that can be objective be really good at covering the team. And at the end of the day, too, like as a fan of the Texans right now, I can tell you that if the Texans were not doing good, I think it would affect my mood and my demeanor. It would take a lot from me to overcome how I am as a fan to cover the team and do my job if they weren't doing well. Like, not because I wouldn't want to cover them. I don't care if the Texans are doing good or not. It would be nice to have the job, but like, it's a thing where like on our platform, like I feel like it's fine because like I can let out my gripes and complaints. But like when the Texans, let's take for example when Schaub has thrown his sixth straight pick six after the team has had some of the best years of their life. I can't say I'd have an easy time going into that post game presser and not expressing some frustration with the performance at a level that's not acceptable in journalism. I think there's like a temperament to it where like some people are concerned about being too easy on the team, but like the other side of that is being too hard on the team when things are bad. Like, and not to say that there is that's likely, but like, someone who is too fanatic could come across in a bad way when things are bad. And I think that not a lot enough people think about that part of things.
I look at those people as the ones that want somebody that's like, objective, because when they're mad, they want that bulldog to go in there and do what they can't do, and it's be not objective and be unruly. And for me, I look at it the other way, totally the other way. I think the guy that's covering the team, that's invested in the team, is going to get to the root of what's going on because he's invested in the team, not because dirt sells. And to me, that's just my opinion. I think that's what some of those guys are doing. Nope, I want to be the one to break some underhanded story, or this is what's wrong and they're doing a bad job and this and that, instead of trying to figure out, okay, how can they solve these problems, get better. It's like, no, there's got to be some smoking gun. There's some cancer in here that we must cut out. And I
agree. I think there's parts of fandom that can make you better at it. So I don't know. I think it's just, I don't think it's like a one way or the other. I think there could be a happy medium. Like you said with Aaron, I think Aaron likes the team. I think that it'd be really hard to do the job if you didn't like the team. But like, I do think at the end of the day, he can go home and disconnect from it because he's not living or dying by the results of Texans games.
Facts.
Whereas like you and me live and die every day by the results of the roster. Like,
I'm not going to die over it. There'll be another season. I guess that's what I'm so hung up on. The people that are literally dying like with every Astros game, and it's 162 of them. And it's like,
now imagine you put one of those guys in the press conference after a game and they're like, Joe, what are you going to do? And they're like really grilling him on the pitching staff. And it's like, dude, there's like injuries. We're 30 games into the season, like 20 games into the season. Like,
okay,
you're really grilling me over that right now. I mean,
you're right.
I get it.
A normal fan should not get that job. Give me the job. I'll do the job. I think I can
give Tom the job. Tom for Houston General Sports Reporter. I'm for it. I'll vote for it
right now.
Bring him in. All right. On that note, thank you for hanging out with us this hour and 8 minutes. I'm surprised how long we went for, like how immediately we went to the mock drafts. I didn't know we would
every
get that
time
far.
We want to break them down. So I knew we were going to be good.
Okay. Like I said, next week we'll be live. If the Texans make a pick in the first round, we'll be going over our final mock drafts and just kind of hyping up the process, going through the picks, seeing who comes off the board, how things shape up for the Texans. So make sure you're there. I have been James Roy. You can find me at James Roy NFL wherever you get your social media. Tom is TC Tom1 on Instagram and Third Coast Tom on Twitter. And we are the Bullpen, a Houston Texans podcast that is the #1 veteran-run Texans podcast ever. And Brandon's in the comments mentioning Fleet Week. Is Fleet Week out in Houston right now?
Yeah.
I did not
I guess
Fleet Week
you
was out
wouldn't
there.
know because you're not here, but yeah.
1 minute. What happened? I can't hear you now.
Me? Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. On that note, I will send us off and then try and figure out why I suddenly can't hear Tom. But thank you for tuning in. As always, stay classy, Houston, and vamos Texans.